I'm going to ask the question first, and I want you guys to answer it because you guys have read the book. So as far as Alphacore 1. So I guess we should go through like kind of what you think the audience is going to take away from it. I'm going to be repeating myself because I've talked about this many times. And look, to me, the thing I love so much about this book that Chuck wrote is you learn a lot about the environment of just the city of Flores Park and how is it handled, because it's a different kind of city if it makes sense, because Alphacore is not just a bunch of fucking mass vigilantes, right? That's not what it is. They work directly with the local law enforcement, which has a dynamic in itself. So you have the dynamic between three individual members of the Alphacore, of Alphacore as a team, and then you have the police force and how that works out, but also in how it impacts the city itself of Flores Park, who you guys know. Isom is right outside of it, right? You see him go back there. You got guys like Darren Fontano there. You got Projections is there, right? You got Lincoln Eusebio. You got, obviously Yaira has returned to the city. So what this does a good job of is setting the scene of, you learn more about the individual characters. But I think your biggest takeaway to me is going to be just the city itself of Flores Park and what a city really looks like when it has authorized fucking cops, super cops, especially that, and how that looks, how accepts operate, be it good or bad, in a city where you have these types of cops kind of roaming. I don't want to say roaming the streets because they're kind of floating above, but you get what it is that I'm saying. So the city of Flores Park is going to be so vital for this universe, and you're going to learn a lot about it. And that was my biggest takeaway is, you learn so much about the characters, man, but the city of Flores Park, you're going to learn a lot about as well. So you guys, ladies, you read the story in its entirety. What would you say? You can answer it twice, right? You can add what's your biggest takeaway and also what you think the perspective will be for the audience as they get it. Aside from, it's fucking Chuck Dixon and it's Joe Bennett's amazing art.
I think the biggest takeaway is I don't think anybody thought Alphacore was as interesting as this. And I don't mean that. I honest to God, don't mean that in an unoffensive. Like, when you first said there were super cops and stuff, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. But the way that Chuck sets up Solari, Ingrid, and Braxwell in the situation that they're in, and how they got there, and how that's being facilitated with the non-accept law enforcement, what that relationship looks like. It plants so many seeds of where these characters are going to go. And also it lets you know where they came from, which makes you a little bit more aware of what decisions they might make in the future, which isn't necessarily what you think a super cop would do.
Right.
They have their own unique motivations because there's still people within these jobs. I think people are going to be blown away by the design work. I was surprised when Chuck writes something. He's talking to his artist in the panels and he's explaining how stuff is going to be designed. And he's like, this is how this is going to be because we're establishing this, this, and that. And you're like, oh man, it's not just like it's not just like a person in a relationship. It's a whole infrastructure. And he understands the police procedural world, and he has so many moving parts going together. And then when it blends together and you see the payoffs, you're like, oh shit, he was setting this up the whole story. I get it.
Yeah.
For me, one thing I was amazed by is when you have a team and you're establishing a new team, it was amazing to see them work together, but also have moments for being out on their own. Yeah. And in those moments, not only did you see their strength, but you saw challenges, you saw weaknesses. Like, it's not like they can do absolutely anything. I always thought Superman would be a difficult character to write because unless you got some kryptonite, you have to
everything.
It has to be the apocalypse every episode, right? It's just insane. And even within their personalities and their beliefs and how they work and what their own individual histories are, no spoilers, they're all such individual characters. And the way that you rub against them, Yaira and Brian Solari are obvious, and Alphacore are adversarial. And I had so much empathy for these characters, especially Brian. I don't want to say that he's got it tough, but I saw a side to Brian that I didn't expect to see. And
humanity, yeah.
It just made me love him more. I mean, I love all the characters, but you know, when you're like the leader of the team, I never gave a shit about Cyclops, not until James Marsden played him, and I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. Maybe I was hard on him. But beyond that, it was just such a bland, annoying character. And Brian is such a well-developed character. All three of them are, but I was surprised that Brian had so many hardships that you wouldn't expect of a super type man. And I think another thing that's amazing is you kind of show what the rules are for accepts, and you find out what the rules are for the police, and you find out what the rules are for the Alphacore. When I found out that they had because they're police officers, they have to work within the police rules, and that in itself was absolutely amazing. The scale of the city, like with Joe's art and what is happening in the story, wow, you really get to feel that. You know how you drop into New York City and it exists, so you can go around and get to know it. It feels like you get dropped down in Florespark and you get a little tour of it.
You
know,
that's a good point.
It's amazing.
And it's very cinematic. I don't know if you guys heard Chuck's stream, but he was talking about big ending. Holy crap. You don't even expect what he's gonna do, and then it happens and you're like, oh man, I thought this and this and this was gonna happen, and it's now this. And it really sets up that the next book of the Alphacore and what's gonna happen is going to be how do I say this without spoiling it?
It makes the world's huge.
Yes.
And things have gone into motion that are very,
very
big.
Things have now gone into motion.
That's a good
because of what happens here, the train has left the station, and yes, there was a plan of what was supposed to happen, but now it's going to be its own thing.
And there's stuff that unexpected that has happened as well, and it just
repercussions for actions.
The
choices.
The stakes are so high. The stakes are high when it starts, but what happens within it, the stakes for the Alphacore, the stakes for Florespark, the stakes for other characters that are developed in this story are just risen so high. And it just you realize how much these characters are working under. You know, you realize what their lives are, you realize what the pressures on them are insane. Like that's what you relate to as well. I mean, I love that Peter Parker couldn't pay his rent. That was just something
that was my favorite thing.
I love that no matter how shitty my life was, Peter Parker's was always worse.
It was worse.
Always worse. And I love to see that, you know, they have their heroic wins, but also they have things where they're kind of like losses. And I'm like, fuck, that's a real character. Even the hero doesn't win everything all the time, even the little battles sometimes.
Some things are, the gut punch that Chuck sets up is great. Like I read it on a paper and I started bawling. He's a master of the craft. That's just
Also, he weaves a story that you don't know where it's going, because there's so many times that I gasped reading it so many times.
But you laugh too. There was one villain introduction, and I remember I was like, wait, what's going on? And then I was like, this is so good.
Not that we're confirming or denying that there's a villain or villains.
In a superhero. True. No, and I'm right there with you. You bring up some great points about, again, his setup, and you know, it's obviously I pick up a lot of that because I try to, like, it's not because Chuck did it, but it's also like kind of what I've done in ISOM 1 and 2, where, you know, he does it way better than I fucking could ever do, just considering the experience. But what I love about the story is that there's like stories within the story, right? There's like, you have these characters, introductions and stuff, but you know, you have this going on, and then there's that going on, and there's that going on. And, you know, even all the 3 individual members of Alphacore, they have their thing going on before everything kind of pays off. But there's like many stories being told within the larger story. And it's a big book, you know, it's 90 plus pages, and he's able to do that. But I love that about this story as well, is just he's so fucking good at that with it jumps around, but it's not incoherent by any means, especially once you read through the entire thing. And I can tell that this is going to be one of those books that people go back to and read a second time, third time around, because they probably maybe missed some stuff. But he's just so good. He's just so good at what it is that he does. And everybody here that's read the story has just been just stoked, just completely stoked on the story. And I think that you guys are gonna love it. I know that you guys are gonna. I know that you guys are gonna love Chuck's story, and to have a guy like that that's around and as enthusiastic as he is, it's been wonderful, man. It's been absolutely wonderful. Alphacore #1's pre-order is live. Written by the legendary Chuck Dixon and penciled by Joe Bennett. Visit Rippaverse.com to grab a copy and any of the merchandise items. Be sure to also check out the animated trailer for the campaign, which is the latest project from Rippaverse Studios. Y'all be easy.